Hello, I'm Zash, and welcome to episode 73 of my G Senjou no Maou, or The Devil on G String, Let's Read. Joining me, as always, is my co-reader Faith. Things are looking a bit better for our heroes. Kyosuke has escaped from his imprisonment and is on his way to hopefully rescue Usami before the window washing gondola collapses from under her. Also, things seem to be going Mao's way as well, as the police look like they're buckling to his demands, and may actually capitulate and release his father. But the heroes are still trapped, and how is Mao going to escape? We shall hopefully find out, so please enjoy.
Just as Haru predicted, the cable had ruthlessly snapped. The only thing at her feet now was a single bar. The number of cables supporting her weight had dwindled down to 2, and they groaned incessantly under the stress. Oh! Haru had to balance herself constantly, as if she were part of some deathly circus. That alone was a great difficulty. It was only compounded each time the gondola, or rather what was left of it, shook wildly. The wind played pranks on her as she tried to straighten herself up. She was out of time. The cables wouldn't hold much longer. The sounds they made as they lay on the verge of snapping were like the shrieks of a reaper. Kyosuke-kun. Haru called his name in fragmented breaths. There was no sign of anyone on the other side of the window. The only thing visible there was her reflection, pale from fear. She gritted her teeth and withstood the fear as long as she could, but there was no sign that her circumstances would improve. It was so cold. Snow began to fall once more. In this situation, even the nearly weightless snow was a highly unwelcome guest to this platform. God, what should I do? She could literally hear her heart pounding. Her legs started to rattle. Courage, the very defining trait of a hero, gradually started to diffuse away from her into the vast depths below. Well, just 'cause you're courageous doesn't mean you're not terrified out of your brain skull.
Yeah. Courage is the ability to work through that fear.
She timidly looked upwards. 2 cables.
You're not brave if nothing scares you.
Yeah, you're just completely out of your mind.
Yeah.
And you're probably gonna die.
Yes.
They played the role of Haru's lifeline. But very soon the curtain would be coming down, and their act would come to an end. I'm sorry, Kyosuke-kun. In the end, she decided to think of him. She didn't want to spend her final moments trembling in fear. He would always complain that she was disgusting, but when all was said and done, he always found the time for her. He remembered the cheesy little promise they made when they were kids. He was the one that had brought spring to her desolate life. It was her feelings for him that rescued her from drowning completely in an ocean of vengeance. If only I could play the violin. One last time. She wanted to play for his sake, if not hers. Then the moment of truth suddenly visited upon her. Her feet felt no pressure. Her heart leapt from her throat. Her blood began to flow backwards. She let out a pathetic scream. She reached for the window in a last, stubborn attempt. It was in vain. The glass was just too smooth. She shut her eyes in despair. Suddenly, the sound of glass breaking interrupted the darkness. Good. So he did come to save me. Only he was too late. Haru was already in midair. Gravity had invited her into death's maw. Her consciousness became intermittent and eventually cut off. At the very end, she thought she heard Kyosuke screaming. The idea that she had caused that scream left her final moments filled with regret. That was when Haru first noticed something calling her. Her brain, after recognizing itself as dead, reactivated at the stimulus. The now revitalized cells attempted to revive their functions as a whole. She felt a firm pressure in the area between her chest and stomach. It seemed to squeeze her. There was a slight warmth to it, even. Its strength was bestial, and the whole sensation seemed to be a proclamation that whatever force had gripped her would not release its quarry.
Haru!
Her name was called again. This time it was right next to her ears. Her body reacted to the heated breath. The voice was a man's. The only man who had ever said her name like that was her late father. Thus, this place must be hell.
Open your eyes!
But what was this burning sensation? It felt similar to when he held her. She didn't care if it was merely a dream. Haru decided to open her eyes. Just maybe. Right. Something like this had happened once before. The sky that day had burned with the glow of sunset. She had dropped her precious pocket watch, something her mother had given her, but her life had been spared. The boy had held on to her firmly, as if to protect her. It was exactly like this. Kyosuke-kun. She could clearly feel his breath on her back. The ragged yet gentle breathing belonged to the young boy from 10 years ago. Naturally, though, he was no longer the irreverent lad he once was.
You've been a real handful. You know that?
Her tears flowed without end. How am I? Didn't I fall?
Yeah, it was a close one, all right. Guns have this thing called a safety. If I had spent just a little more time fumbling around with it, you would have been a goner.
What?
I shot out the window.
Oh yeah. I kind of remember that part. She had no recollection of her arm being grabbed at the moment of the fall. But regardless, here she was inside the building, on the safety of solid ground. So you made it in time. I guess the sensation that I was falling was a hallucination or something.
That was no hallucination. You really did come falling down.
Huh? Come falling down? He shot the window out below her, didn't he?
Yeah.
Keisuke went on to explain.
This is the 46th floor. I couldn't go any higher because of the fire shutter, so I decided to stay here and look around the building for the gondola you were on. You following me?
Her head was still a little foggy. The droning of his voice seemed to envelop her in a sort of sugary sensation.
Your tits are huge and your hair is crazy long, so catching you the moment you fell was a piece of cake.
I can't believe you. There's no way it could be as simple as you said. Haru was on either the 47th or 48th floor. The distance from there to here would have to be 10 feet at the absolute minimum. Taking into account her weight and the speed of the fall, no human being could just catch that and walk away perfectly fine. She looked over to the window. The window frame was about 3 feet from the ground. He must have braced his lower body against that space. Otherwise, he would have gone tumbling over the edge along with her.
You hung on to the bitter end, huh?
What?
You were sticking to that window like a frog.
He chuckled. Right. He was able to catch her because she had fallen so close to the window. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You don't need to thank me.
Just then, she felt the strength leave Kyosuke's arms. He had expended the last of his energy. One look at his soot-stained clothes and slashed fingers was enough to tell the story of the hardships he must have faced.
Really? You don't?
Are you gonna ask for money instead?
No.
His voice grew weaker.
Just let me hear your violin. One more.
Kyosuke went still after that. He was still breathing. He just lost consciousness. Haru began to squirm. But on the other hand, she thought it might be nice to stay like this a little longer. How wonderful would it be to just forget everything else and fall asleep like this? Just a little longer, she thought. She would lie just a little longer in the arms of the man who nearly threw his life away to save her.
Grr. I had apparently slept for quite some time. Thanks to the rest, my feverish haze has subsided a bit. Unfortunately, the endorphins masking the soreness of my legs and waist have subsided as well. The terrorists had already left the building, but just to be safe, we took those blasted stairs. We took our time and allowed for frequent rest breaks.
Are you doing okay?
Yeah, I don't really like it when people worry about me. I tried to hide my wobbly legs.
I know where they took the hostages.
How did you pull that one off?
I saw a bus from my vantage point on the gondola. It set off from the front of the building and headed towards the cluster of hotels in the middle of Central Boulevard.
You were able to follow it from up there?
Yeah. The bus's lights were on, and the path it took to get there was illuminated by neon signs and the like.
I see. So what about it?
Wouldn't you say this information could prove to be a valuable weapon?
I nodded after a second of confusion. Yeah, I follow you. If the police know where the hostages are, particularly Imagawa, they can stop waiting and break the blockade. After considering our options for a moment, I spoke up. Let's get closer and check it out.
What? You're okay with that?
Well, at least we would have a solid direction. I'd say it beats wandering around searching for an exit that we don't even know exists. And I can't lie, backing out after coming this far would leave a bad taste in my mouth. The animal inside me howled, urging me to slay the one who felled the beast. Supporting each other with our shoulders, Usami and I head for Central Boulevard. Megalipses. Ellipses. The incident is now in its 17th hour. 0500 hours. The police have been quick to act. I received word from a comrade in a coastal fishing village that the 3 prisoners had just been loaded onto the boat I prepared. Very good. Once you have Samajima Toshikatsu, feel free to use either of the other prisoners as part of a deal. You can toss them overboard for all I care. Alright then. My victory had been assured. I'd say that takes care of everything but Kyosuke. And I sincerely hope you put on a good show. Don't disappoint me now, little brother, my other half. Megalipses. Ellipses. We had just passed one of Aichi's father's hotels.
I'm pretty sure it went this way.
Looks like you're right. There's a bus parked over there. It was stopped in front of a cheap motel. Armed men stood at the entrance.
I'd say we hit the jackpot.
We eyed the hotel from the corner of a nearby alley. All of a sudden, a group of people stepped through the door. They all wore suits. They must be the hostages from Sano. I sighed in relief upon seeing that Iwai was among them. They were lining up and boarding the bus. There was no sign of Imagawa amongst them.
I think we can rest assured about at least one thing.
Yeah, Imagawa is still in the hotel. Megalipses. Ellipses.
We left the prisoners with your man, as promised.
Good work. The hostages shall be released as well.
Including Representative Imagawa?
You're on the ball, as usual. I'm afraid you'll have to wait for him. He'll be in your hands the moment my comrade's ship reaches international waters.
Then I want you to call off the rioters in the blockaded zone immediately.
But of course, I'll cooperate. But I regrettably believe the situation's inertia will extend its lifetime beyond immediately.
Then let's get ahead and move on to negotiating your surrender.
Don't be so hasty. I will keep my promise. My life is now insignificant, now that my comrades have been freed. My conversation with Tokita was interrupted by a report from Alan, who had been surveying the area from the roof of the hotel. I chuckled. Victory was mine. No one can stop my father's ship now. Now, let's finish this. Megalipses. I whispered to Usami. The problem will be getting the police to believe us.
Yeah. If it were just a little brighter, I could take a picture with my cell phone.
Do you think we could get any closer? The bus the hostages are boarding is pretty bright. The lights inside were shining brightly enough to illuminate the surroundings.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that might be enough light.
How about we pretend to be a pair of rioters and casually walk by, then secretly take a picture? Getting a shot with both the hotel entrance and the hostages in the frame would be plenty enough to prove our claim. We decided upon a course of action and set out nervously toward the bus. Megalipses. Ellipses. I'll call you back in a moment, Mr. Tokita. I abruptly hang up the phone. I dash out to the hotel entrance. I pull a gun from my suit and shove my way through the line of hostages boarding the bus. Usami! She had fallen from the roof. I never imagined she would live to fight again and show up here of all places. Nonetheless, she and Kyosuke were casually strolling down the middle of the street. Why would they be here? They've obviously identified this location as the holding place for the hostages. They edged closer to the bus as they walked down the road. What are they planning to do by getting near the bus? I can say with a good degree of certainty that they aren't attempting to open fire and free the hostages. Something in Kyosuke's right hand flashed momentarily. A camera. So, they intend to call the police, do they? I calmly open fire. A bullet grazed my cheek. He's getting really lucky with those bullet grazes.
Yeah.
I turned around to the dark figure of Maou. Damnable rodents! Usami and I dashed off in tandem. My strained muscles screamed in agony. I commanded my body regardless. If I didn't want to die, I had to move. We've got the photograph we need. All we have to do is get away, and we're home free. The sound of gunshots blared out once more. My survival instinct took over. I turned around and fired off a shot of my own as I ran. I didn't manage to hit Maou, of course, and all I managed was a wrist wrenched by recoil. It seemed to slow him down for a moment at least.
Over there.
We ran into a narrow alley. I followed the sound of gunfire into a narrow alley. Usami and Kyosuke had escaped into a blind alley, yet they were nowhere to be seen. 3 doors littered the alley's right wall, each appearing to be the rear entrances to a pub or similar joint. The left wall had a single door. It looked to belong to a storage room of some sort. Now, where have they run off to? It's got to be one of the doors on the right. If they had chosen the left door, they would have ended up trapped and cornered. Pubs have front entrances after all. Storage rooms are dead ends. The only unknown here is which of the 3 doors is the correct door. My best bet is probably the door closest to the alley entrance. If one was running in a panic, one wouldn't have the luxury of choosing one of the further doors. I reached for the doorknob of the first door. It was locked. Did they lock it from the inside, or was it locked to begin with? Wait a minute. I noticed something peculiar about the furthest door. The keyhole had been shot through. I had heard a gunshot before arriving at this alley. This must be the one. I pushed the door open. I ducked and held my weapon at the ready, just in case they were planning an ambush. They're not here. It was just a dark pub. Was I wrong? The chairs were in disarray, and the tableware had all been cracked and broken. I screwed up. The interior was too disheveled for the work of 2 people in the middle of a frantic escape. The lock had probably been shot through by a few rioting children looking for a good time. I'd say that means the gunshot I heard was just a diversion. Just then, I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. The door on the left-handed side of the alley, the one leading into the storage room, slowly opened. The muzzle of a gun slowly pointed in my direction. I immediately went prone to avoid the bullet. As the bullet ricocheted off the floor with a high-pitched clang, I took out my transceiver and called for backup. It's me. The devil must be on Usami and Kyosuke's side today. It's been fun, but my will is unshakable. Even if you call the police at this point, you will accomplish nothing. I gave Alan the word. We're putting a stop to the games now. You know what to do. Megalipses. Ellipses. Maou didn't have as many soldiers as we initially thought. We managed to shake off our pursuers and reach the center of Central Boulevard. Usami panted heavily.
You hurt?
I'm fine, though I feel like I've used an entire life's worth of energy in one day. My legs feel like 2x4s. Seeing as they felt the need to chase us, I guess that nails it. The hostages are in there.
Yeah. But how are we going to get this image to the police?
Call in a favor from Tokita.
I see. Come to think of it, I missed a few calls from her earlier. I didn't exactly have the time to be answering the phone, though.
She's the daughter of a police big shot, isn't she? She might be able to convince her father that we aren't a part of the angry mob. Usami whipped out her phone.
Hey, is Yuki? It's me. Yeah, I'm fine. Oh, so you heard what's going on from the news? We have information on Mr. Imagawa's whereabouts. I'll send you a text in a second. See if you can't get it to your dad somehow.
Still, would the police force even accept a personal call during negotiations? Well, I guess if she lets him know it's an emergency pertaining to the case. The police wouldn't pass up information concerning Representative Imagawa's whereabouts.
She says to leave it to her.
I guess all we can do now is to trust in Tokita.
She's also wondering if this situation is Mao's handiwork.
I see. Tokita has met him before, so she can relay what information she has to the police. Naturally, that will lead the police to question her about her relationships with Maou. Give me the phone for a second. I snatched the phone from Usami. Listen, Tokita.
What's up? How are you faring in Ground Zero? Sound downright awful.
I didn't have time for her sarcastic small talk. The mastermind behind this riot is Maou.
Yeah, Haru told me. The news says he's calling himself a spy.
Really now? Anyway, We just attacked the man himself a moment ago. Mao is definitely the one behind this.
Yes, I understand. I intend to tell the police everything I know.
I thought so. Don't forget the money. You better not spout anything about the school hostage incident. Tokita responded after some hesitation.
Very well.
She hung up. You should have told him it was Kyohei.
Yeah.
Like, that would have that might have rattled Mao a little bit.
Yeah.
Even if she keeps quiet, though, she won't be getting off easy once they know about her involvement with Mao. She said that Mao had introduced her to a variety of criminals in the past. Tokita likely believes that she herself shouldered some sort of guilt each time he did so. Well, it's a pit she dug for herself. I'm sure she'll find a way to get out of it on her own. I guess the only thing left to do is to sit back and pray the police come save us. Fortunately, I have a weapon, effective or no. It should at least function as a deterrent to the rioting mobs.
Oopsies.
Is something wrong? She seemed to be mulling over something.
No. I feel like something's off here.
Like what specifically?
I can't quite put my finger on it. Something just isn't quite right. You notice she and Mao have the same eye color?
Yep. Megalipses. Ellipses. After a dozen or so minutes, I resumed my negotiations with the police. Mr. Tokita's previous fluent speech suddenly stumbled.
It's time to hand yourself in. Disarm yourself completely within the next hour.
What was that?
Nothing. Just a little equipment trouble. Now, where were we?
Something must have happened.
Is something the matter, Asai?
The image Kyosuke took must have just reached the task force.
Are you there?
It's only a matter of time before their special assault team comes charging in. Yes, I certainly am. And never you worry, I've prepared myself for surrender, as promised.
Then why have you yet to release the hostages?
The police have started to take a more forward attitude. That just about confirms my suspicions. Things are lagging a bit due to a few injuries among the lot of them. The hostages have boarded a bus, and it's about to take off as we speak. I've won regardless. We're past the point of no return. I've already managed to save Father. Having accomplished my lifelong goal, my mind wandered to thoughts of my mother. Megalipses. Ellipses. After waiting for 10-20 minutes, there was still no sign of an upcoming police raid.
I wonder why.
I don't know, but I suppose the most probable reason would be that they don't have a good point of attack.
Right. Do you think there's anything we can do from the inside to help them out?
Ellipses. Usami's eyes told me she was serious. It couldn't hurt to give it a shot, at least. The fighting spirit I had cultivated over the past couple of days revived once again. As we have just seen, the number of professional soldiers is overwhelmingly few in comparison to the rioting mobs. There must be a weak point in the blockade somewhere. If we could just move one of the trucks blocking the roads. Hey, Usami, do you have Horibe's cell phone number?
Huh? Oh, yeah. He gave it to me during that fiasco at the figure skating arena.
With his help, we should be able to do something about the kids protecting the choke points.
You mean?
You bet. If the police aren't going to blow the blockade, then we're just going to have to do it for them and invite them in. I won't let you have your way, Mao. I can understand my brother's sorrow. I failed to protect Mom, so maybe I don't have the right to criticize Samajima Kyohei. However, Maou tried to kill Usami. He toyed with her on multiple occasions. Wouldn't you say there's plenty enough cause for retribution, brother? Megalipses. Ellipses. I just received word that the boat had left Japanese waters. Father is currently in the process of boarding a different ship. Relief heaved from my heart and my lips alike. I had finally attained repose. It was a long time in coming. I shed a few uncharacteristic tears. Even the devastation permeating the streets overwhelmed me with emotion. This is the last time I'll ever see scenery like this. The phone rang incessantly, informing me of Superintendent Tokita's call. I lifted the phone to my ear. Thank you for your cooperation, Senior Superintendent. Leaving that simple statement, I calmly ended the phone call. You've all finished preparing for your withdrawal, I trust? I bade farewell to the comrades I had asked to assist me in painting this portrait of hell. Granted, most of them merely joined up for the pay. That's a wrap. You're free to disband. And now, I am alone. Megalipses. Ellipses. Move aside if you don't want to die! I point my gun at the kid dozing off at the driver's seat in the bus. He turned to me with a face that said, "What the fuck do you want?" But then he caught sight of the three grizzled ogres, Sonoyama men, behind me. Where could this vehicle have been stolen from, anyway? Two gargantuan buses parked end-to-end blockaded one of the streets leading to Central Boulevard. We approached one of the two buses in an attempt to seize the vehicle. The kid who was occupying the driver's seat ran away in terror. The rest is up to you, Horibe. You got it. Heh. Never you worry. There's more ways to start a car when you forget the keys than there are to skin a cat. Hey, you! Horibe prodded a screwdriver and issued the order to one of the men. I left them to their own, deciding not to be privy to this method of Grand Theft Auto.
As I said,
What's up? She seemed to have something on her mind.
well, there's a crowd amassing outside.
They must have heard the commotion. More boys started to show up one by one. One of the Yakuza guys fired off a few warning shots through a window with his submachine gun. You need to open your eyes! I shouted as loud as I could. The police will be here soon! It's all over for us! A murmur ran along the crowd of boys. They might be worn down from all this. They were likely afraid now that they'd come to their senses and witnessed the immeasurable destruction they caused. I decided I'd capitalize on that fear. The police have found where the hostages are being held. They're going to come charging in here any minute. I'll wake them from their foolish dreams of creating a nation just for kids. We were just being used. Throw down your weapons. If you don't, you'll be killed by the police. More submachine gun fire. More than 50 people had gathered by now. Someone among them shouted, "Yeah, he's right!" It sounded somewhat familiar. Perhaps it belonged to Hashimoto. Or perhaps I merely wanted to believe that. The murmur accelerated into chaos. The crowd had already exceeded 100. It no longer consisted solely of young boys. The middle-aged and elderly had joined them out there. Looks like there were more survivors than I thought. Luckily, not a single number of the running herd was attempting to cause harm upon another. The rioters were preoccupied with thoughts of saving their own necks. I hear the bus engines fire up behind me. There's no need to stir the crowd any further. The bus scraped against a building wall, as it heads slowly forward. The blockade is breaking. The Sonoyama man driving the bus blared the horn as he drove into the crowd of people. They were no longer a violent mob. It was every man for himself as they rushed towards the outside world. Now's our chance. Help! If we don't want to be caught by the police, we need to get the hell out of here. Screams and yells weave together in the pandemonium. A nearby police squad shouted orders via megaphone in an attempt to quell the rushing human tide.
Stop! Remain calm!
It was futile. The crowd continued their advance like a tsunami. The riot police, equipped with duraluminum shields, seemed to be at a loss for how to handle the incoming crowd. I guess since they were neither looters or protesters, they weren't sure how to deal with them. The group of refugees included people of all sorts, from young boys to the elderly. Businessmen, yakuza, foreigners, students, a large variety of people had been trapped in Central Boulevard up until now, after all. Among them were men covered in blood and women barely covering themselves in their tattered clothes. Now that the kids had disarmed themselves, there was no distinguishing between civilians and rioters. The officers decided just to take everyone regardless, but in the end, they were swallowed up by the mob. They frantically requested backup. Another police group appeared shortly thereafter, pushing itself through the waves of people. There seemed to be about 20 of them. Their uniforms and equipment were clearly different from the first group of officers. They wore guns at their sides. They were likely a special assault team or something. The group entered a formation and tore through the crowd. Their trained, nimble movement seemed like a lightning bolt ripping through the stormy sea of people. They paid us absolutely no heed as they made their way to the end of the street in a flash. They seemed to be headed for the cheap motel Usami and I had snapped a picture of. This should spell the end for Maou.
Son. As I, son.
I couldn't hear her very well over the incessant tumult.
Phone!
The phone? For me? Who would want to talk to me in this situation? I made my way out of the crowd. Who is it?
I think you'll know once you take it.
She wore a rather grim expression. I took the phone from Usami with some hesitation. Hello? The voice on the other end left me agape.
Kyosuke.
I lost all words. Likewise, the clamor around me suddenly seemed to disappear.
You must be surprised, Kyosuke.
What do you want? Maou responded in a calm tone, one unlike any that had been used before.
I just thought we could have a little talk before the end.
Huh? I felt a lump forming in my throat.
Father is finally free. I have no more regrets.
What? I had no idea. The police accepted Mao's demands? And?
Nothing. That's all.
That's all? I had no idea how to interpret my current feelings. I saw the image of my loving brother superimposed on the hatred of Maou, and my heart became a jumbled mess. You're not planning to die, are you? Maou didn't answer. And that was all the answer I needed. It was obvious now that I think about it. I mean, he was able to occupy Central Boulevard, sure, but what exactly was his escape plan? The scale might be huge, but in the end, he had holed himself up. You've planned on dying all along. It was unavoidable. Ellipses. That was when, for the very first time, I bore witness to the extent of Mao's resolve. His entire life, he had been on his own. On his own, he challenged the country. On his own, he won. But the price he paid was his very life. but you've committed many serious crimes.
I know.
You've deceived and killed a large number of people.
I know.
That's not something that can just be forgiven. I found myself clenching my fists. But Maou, no, Kyohei, had not called me to seek forgiveness.
So, you were the one who released the blockade, Kyosuke. You can accomplish a great deal when you put your mind to it.
Ellipses.
I see. You've grown much stronger, haven't you?
My chest burned. I wanted to scream. But it was my fault that Mom...
It was fate.
He tried to comfort me, and that's when I couldn't take it anymore. My family was all leaving me. First Kiyomi, then Mom, and now even my once dead brother.
What a cursed family we are.
He spoke in self-derision.
However, you and I are different.
Nissan.
I lived only for revenge, but you have. Well, she's right next to you, isn't she?
You saw me. Yeah, she is. She's trying to listen in on our conversation, actually. She must be worried about me. Nissan laughed.
I was not able to forgive her, but you can. Forgive her and sever these chains of vengeance.
I no longer have any clue of what to say. We just spent the time in silence. Snowflakes were dancing in the wind.
Farewell, Kyosuke.
At that moment, the dark night sky was overcome with a red glow. Puffs of dark smoke rose up into the air, and throngs of people came running from the same direction. I could hear the police screaming into their walkie-talkies. I could barely make out a couple words among them. Motel, bomb. I stood aghast with the cell phone still up to my ear. I just wanted to forget everything. Was there something I could have said to him in his final moments? To everyone else, he was the nefarious Maou, but to me, he was still my one and only brother. Nissan. I pushed the redial button on the cell phone. I was in a daze. Naturally, the call wasn't going to reach him. Regardless, I tried over and over. A long-haired girl grabbed onto my arm.
As I said.
Her words were brief but harsh.
Don't let yourself be fooled.